Oh my God. While I was cooking food, bro, I'm a bit baffled. This is good stuff for a consumer that's into tech. This is some pretty good news from what I've heard a little bit about this. All right, I'm back. I've got a drink and everything. I'm ready to go for this reaction to this information about the new graphics cards coming out. So what this is about PC hardware. For those of you, a lot of my subscribers probably might not know what this is. I'm a bit of a tech savvy. I like to keep up to date with new hardware coming out, which is good for obviously PC users, consumers, and obviously also like if you use consoles, the next generation of consoles might use some of these features and hardware, especially it being AMD focused, this specific video. It's very interesting stuff if you're into this. I'm not gonna lie, it looks very exciting. I can't wait to see what a benchmark's like, because I might have to pick up one of these when it launches. Because my GPU, I'm using the one generation older, the 6900 XT. Let's see what he's saying, because he knows what he's talking about. I watch all of his videos. Guys, if you want to keep up to date with tech, he's definitely one to go watch. JayzTwoCents.
What's up, guys? JayzTwoCents here in Las
I will obviously link the video in the description, so.
Vegas. You are either watching right now or have just finished watching or are about to watch the AMD keynote about RDNA 3.
Yep. I just watched that.
So we got a lot of anticipation here. A lot of stuff to kind of talk about and digest. Man, where to begin? I'm not even entirely too sure yet. But first, let's get paid, and then we'll talk about it. We interrupt this video to bring you a special message from iFixit.
I love his sponsor. These are actually so top tier. I'm going to skip it because this is...
Of course, we're talking about NVIDIA there. The RDNA 3 technology, or the third generation RDNA graphics. So we had the 5700 XT, and then we had the 6900, and then 6950.
So 6900 is what I've got. Then you had the older generation, which is the first generation of RDNA 3. So RDNA is like the current like tech name for like the generation of GPUs. So you got RDNA 1, which was the 5000 series. RDNA 2, which is what I'm on, which is the 6000 series. RDNA 3, which is the new generation, the 7000 series coming.
DXT, and then now we have a 7900 XTX and a 7900 XT. I love how the naming convention, by the way.
Look at this. So this is like the model up from mine, right? The newer. So I had the 6900 XT. This is the 7900 XT. So it's gone from, I think mine's 16 gigabytes of VRAM, if I remember correctly. So they've gone from 16 to 20, and I think the model up from this is 24 gigs, which is the standard, I guess. The 490 is also 24. But look at that power. Look at that power draw. 300 watts. In comparison to a 4090, which is NVIDIA's top tier card, which is obviously their main rivals. That's crazy. That's half. That's literally half. The 4090 had so much power draw at 600 watt just for a GPU that it was literally melting wires and stuff, and like it was a serious fire hazard. It was an issue, and the card itself was like the size of a PS5.
Is really starting to go back towards the roots of Radeon, the RX 7900 XTX. The two SKUs that we're going to talk about based on the RDNA 3 technology. Let's just talk about first the base level specs, because I know the average consumer just kind of wants base level specs. We'll talk about some of the stuff that makes this launch so much more unique than it just being a new graphics card that's either a smaller process and a bigger die and more horsepower. So the 7900 XTX has 24 gigabytes of GDDR6, which is kind of like the standard now, right? I mean, NVIDIA's 4090 and 3090 both had 24 gigabytes.
Oh, so this one is 555. So this is their top. I guess this will be. This is obviously the model lower, right? So this will be like the comparison to what I've got, the older generation, and this one will be comparison to. And I'm not gonna lie, I've always been like. You always find, especially when it comes to PCs, you always find it's like I guess it's the same situation with consoles, right? You always got the PlayStation fanboy or the Xbox fanboy, and on the PC world, you've got the AMD fanboy or the NVIDIA fanboy or the Intel fanboy. I mean, I've never cared. I've always wanted the best price to performance. That's what it's always been about, which AMD's always been pretty good at. So that's why I've always gone that way. But it's not because I'm like a fanboy and I'm blinded by it. It's just because I've always been, what's going to give me the most bang for my buck, sort of thing. So again, whatever these are just the statistics, right? And this is what we know. This is what's been said. No one will really know 100% what or how these cards will really perform until they're actually officially released. And then people like JayzTwoCents can benchmark them and test them and put them up against NVIDIA and Intel stuff. But that's how we'll know.
There's a lot of discussion of 8K. That's not necessarily because they are saying 8K gaming is being adopted. It's just that's the next 4K in the sense of how hard is it to run? Because 4K is really becoming easy to run these.
Okay, so ready for next gen. So the next gen display ports is 2.1. So in 1440p, you can be able to get to 900 refresh rate. 4K you can be able to get to almost 500, and then 8K you'll be able to get up to 165. Obviously, I doubt any card will actually hit 165 Hz in 8K. I'd be very surprised. And the few titles that's been tested in 8K on, like, let's say the 4090, right? Yeah, like, I think Arc max settings got 30 frames. So you know what I mean? I mean, that's obviously a very hard game to run. I reckon, like, more like, something like Valorant's probably like 60. I guess. I haven't checked.
Days for the graphics cards, especially when you have FSR 2.0 and then you have DLSS 3. And by the way, FSR 3.0 coming out in the first half of 2023, so that's exciting. We'll talk about the uplift there in a second. So it's a 5 nanometer compute die. So the compute die, or the actual like GPU portion of it, is a fully fleshed out 5 nanometer process. However, the memcache dies, or this is what's based on the chiplet design now, is a 6 nanometer, again, fully matured 6 nanometer cache die. That gives you 61 teraflops of compute.
This is a new die, right? That's usually used in CPUs, I believe, but they put it into a GPU, which I don't think any other GPU manufacturer's done. I don't think NVIDIA do. I don't think Intel have done it on their new cards. As far as I'm aware, AMD's, this is the first time them doing this sort of chipset. Obviously, every card is based off a certain chipset. Same with CPUs and all kind of, even your phone, like, you know, hardware will have some kind of chipset, right? And this is what's going to be the new GPU chipset. And it's, I think, as far as I'm aware, again, I'm not a massive tech guy. Like, I don't know. I'm not like in the know. I don't get sent. I'm not. You know, I'm just a gamer, but I do like to keep kind of up to date with what's going on. That's it. This is why I watch people like JayzTwoCents, who knows what they're talking about for the most part, and obviously like Linus Tech Tips is also a really good one, and there's also others as well. But 61 teraflops, I know that's madness, right? I believe that's insane because of the new chips that they've actually managed to fit 61 teraflops, and I believe that is incredible. I think isn't the 6000 series only goes up to like 20 something flops. So the fact that this is over double, that's crazy. Yeah, versus the 223 flops of RDNA 2. So RDNA 2, which is my GPU, so that maxes out at, what, 23 flops. That's crazy.
1 teraflops. Now, a lot of the ways that they're accomplishing this is because of the, 58 billion transistors in their 300 millimeter squared GCD, but because of the fact that they have 6 nanometer MCDs and 6 of them, creating an infinity cache that is much faster than going out to the graphics.
See, this is why I wouldn't do a review or try and do a video talking about new GPUs by myself. You know what I mean? I don't know this sort of tech like this guy. He's talking about stuff, and some of it's going on my head. Obviously, I do get bits and pieces of it, but I wouldn't want to try and explain it to people. So this is why we react to these sort of reviews and react to the information given to us, you know?
The VRAM. Now they've reached a point where by taking what they've learned with developing the Ryzen CPU and having an infinity cache there, the more compute that can take place natively on the die is always going to be faster than going anywhere else through the substrate or the architecture. So by now having up to 96 megabytes available of cache to the GCD means a very fast communication there without having to go out to the GDDR6. Everyone knows the smaller process is a more efficient process. So one of the big focuses here regarding RDNA 3 is power efficiency. 54% performance per...
Especially in the UK when electric prices are insane. It's something you definitely want to consider. If you want, unless you want to like invest in a nuclear reactor to power your house, which you would need for a 4090. I'm just saying.
Watt improvement over RDNA 2, which was already extremely efficient. So the 7900 XTX has a 355 watt TDP utilizing 2 8-pin PCI Express power connectors, standard power connectors. In terms of the size as well, it's fairly standard. It's a 2.5 slot card, and it is a little bit taller than average, but the bottom line is it will fit in just about any chassis, even small form factor. So it's already looking like a benefit for many people to be able to not have to use any sort of a power adapter or not have to buy another plug or a new power supply to try and work around the power adapter. You don't have to basically jackhammer out your case to be able to fit the graphics card in there.
If you're wondering what he means by that, if anyone after this video you're watching and you are interested in this, go have a look at the size of the 4090. The 4090 is the size of a PS5, sorry. So you try to get that in a case, unless you've got a full tower case, it isn't happening unless you literally break your case to force it in. Like, it's obscene. It's probably twice the size of that card.
It's kind of insane what they were able to accomplish there. Now, ray tracing, it's interesting because of the fact that this is their 2nd gen RT core, and if you're into ray tracing, it's going to be a hard sell to convince, I think, people to go with AMD over NVIDIA, because NVIDIA is on their 3rd gen RT core. But now when it comes to performance too, the 7900 XT is just a little bit kind of shaved down version of the 7900 XTX. I think it's weird that they chose XT versus XTX rather than saying 7900 at 7950. Makes me wonder, is there a 7950 coming out later? I just think the XTX and the XT is a really kind of an homage to the original Radeon days when it was like ATI. Both cards feature DisplayPort 2.1. That's big because DisplayPort 1.4 has been the standard for a long time, but 2.1 gives you a massive forward-facing future-proofing when it comes to new panels coming out in the future here, which will allow for 165 hertz 8K or 480 hertz 4K. Now, it's very difficult to find a game these days that is actually going to run that kind of FPS at that sort of resolution. However, this is how you end up achieving those frame rates in the future, is because you have the standard and the spec that gets adopted, and as over the next few generations of graphics cards, seeing 480 FPS in AAA titles in 4K will be very realistic. We all said the same thing about 1080 when 1080 was new. We said that about 1440 when it was new. It's like, those resolutions will never hit high FPS. Well, that's completely, and I'm sorry about the noise, guys. It's, we're in a hotel lobby here. There's so much going on. But that's all achievable because of the 54 gigabit transfer rate of the cable, or the spec of this 2.1 DisplayPort. But it also natively supports 12-bit color. Where I was looking at this going is the fact that this would make an amazing 8K HTPC theater if you were having 8K projector. 8K projectors in home theaters and stuff exist. And
if you want to have an 8K home theater,
that sort of Blu-ray performance, because Blu-ray's not there yet, so you'd have to use like an HTPC. 8K 165, that's really just a spec flex. I take that back, actually. They did show some 8K titles that were achieving 130, 140 FPS with the 7900 XTX using FSR 3.0. We didn't get a whole deep dive on how FSR 3.0 works. That's coming later in 2023. But that's one of the things that makes some of these really high FPS, 8K, 165 hertz stuff even possible. So now in frequencies, it's interesting because we have, they have different frequencies for different tasks and different operations, which is part of the efficiency design. Rather than just going, okay, everything goes to this clock speed under this workload and everything's kind of going balls to the wall, but the load is low, and that's not very power efficient. So they have a 2.3 gigahertz shader clock speed, which is 25% more efficient than RDNA 2. Well, at 2.3 gigahertz, it's 25% more efficient than it was at RDNA 2 at the same frequency. They have a 2.5 gigahertz front-end clock speed, which is 15% higher than RDNA 2. Now, these numbers are always weird because of the fact that you know that the clocks do auto and dynamically boost based on workload and temperatures and overhead and power limit and all that sort of stuff. So more than likely, you'll see these clocks be higher than that no matter what. But what I find kind of interesting is the fact
that you could hear all the background noise going on, right? Because he's in a hotel. It's crazy.
Versus if we kind of compare, like, again, I don't want to compare AMD and NVIDIA on the clock speed level. I say this all the time, that clock speeds are not directly comparable between NVIDIA's architecture and especially this chiplet architecture.
The same with CPUs
there was
too.
A significant clock speed bump on 40 series for NVIDIA versus 30 series. I mean, 2.8 gigahertz auto boosting out of the box. On pretty much just about, well, 2.7 to 2.8 out of every card. We saw those types of frequencies, 2.6 to 2.7, easily happening on AMD's RDNA 2, but again, that was because of the dynamic clock speeds happening here. But I think because we have 58 billion transistors in this 300 millimeter squared die, this GCD, I think there had to be a little bit of a trade-off where there was a massive transistor boost count increase with a modest clock speed increase. And that's, again, because efficiency was very important this time around. I mean, 355 watts. That sure as heck looks a lot better than 450 plus watts of melting connectors. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, and you guys have probably already noticed. There was absolutely zero comparison in any sort of game, not just versus NVIDIA. There was a couple of mentions of like, performance uplift versus RDNA 2 in terms of like, you know, up to 1.7 times faster or 2 times. So basically, it's a 2 times instructions per clock increase. And that's specifically attributed to the 6nm MCD or memory core or memory cache die design, chiplet design versus the GCD, the 300mm squared GCD design. So the chiplet design is what they're attributing that 2x performance uplift in terms of IPC. Now they did compare it to the 6000 series in a couple of slides here in terms of both efficiency and then just overall performance uplift. But there was zero comparison whatsoever in relative performance to anything from the competition. And I kind of expected there to be, because of the fact that the 4090 has been out for a month now. If you're AMD, you know you're going to immediately start testing your product against it. So
why didn't they at least mention it, right? Maybe you don't want to give it the publicity, right? Maybe that's part of it, but... And the reason, maybe they had an idea set on the price and they changed it because maybe it doesn't meet the 490 performance, or they could have other reasons, who knows.
Of the performance versus NVIDIA, that's where things are really looking... I know it sounds like a fart. I swear it's not. It's tape over there. I'm not farting, guys, I swear. Anyway. But it definitely leaves, I think, a lot of questions for gamers. Okay, the price. 7900 XTX available December 13th for $999.
I mean, that price is kind of insane.
And then 7900 XT, 20 gigabyte, also December 13th for $899. The 7900 XTX is a minimum $600 cheaper than a 4090. Remember, the cheapest 4090 is the Founders Edition, and everything's up from there. So if we extrapolate any sort of performance figures from the price, which I don't think, that would mean that it's 60% of the performance of an RTX 4090.
That's what I mean. The price is not even if you think about it. $1,000 basically, right? £1,000, $1,000 in comparison to the 4090, which I guess is what they're aiming for, as close to it as possible, which is £1,600. So there's a $600, £600 price difference between the two cards, which is obviously 60%, which mathematically would work out. So depends on how it actually performs when these cards actually are actually benchmarked together. We'll have to wait and see, I guess. But
so they're just going to price it 60% less expensive. I don't think that's true. I think there's a drill that's going over there now. I think there's a market share move here to let's maybe cut into our profit a little bit to bring the price down to make it more incentivizing. Because the missing information here is if it's as good as they're saying and it's priced where it is, wouldn't you want to say, oh, and by the way, it's just as fast as the other guy at this price? So I don't know. I have to assume that this is maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of a 4090. Maybe they're waiting to compare it to a 4080. I don't know. So does them not showing any sort of performance metric versus NVIDIA a move of uncertainty? Is it them maybe taking the high road? Because one of the things AMD's always done in the past, especially with old marketing and when like Roy Taylor was around and stuff, was the problem of like our marketing is about putting down the other guy, not about standing on our own legs and our own products. AMD's model has changed from that a long time ago. And I feel like it's literally just, here's our product, we're putting it out there. And maybe comparing it to the other guy looks like you don't want the other guy to be the benchmark you're against, because that sort of beefs up the other guy. So I don't know, I'm really confused by the fact that there's no performance metrics against anything through NVIDIA, which means you're just gonna have to watch our reviews when we start reviewing the products. So I'm cautiously optimistic about this, but I'm gonna tell you right now, as I have already stated, a 7950X CPU will be my next CPU for the next rig I build that's gonna replace my 10th gen at home. The 12th gen rig never made it home because I still have nothing but weird issues with 12th gen at my studio and I just can't bring that home. I'm not happy with it. The CPU, that's settled. The GPU, I need to see how this performs. If it's anywhere in the ballpark of a 4090, but it doesn't require the stupid cable adapters and it's not this gigantic thing, which obviously it's not based on the reference design, it is very likely that I will, for the first time in the last 10 plus years, have a full all AMD rig. And I'm looking forward to that.
And as someone, I guess that's actually kind of big news, especially because someone who's always kind of like kept to their own, software or hardware that they're kind of used to, right? So that's good. It means AMD's going in the right direction, depending on how well this how it performs out of the box when it actually releases, and how it compares to the 4090. I mean, because even if it doesn't perform as well, right? You got to remember there's a $600 difference. That's huge. So as long as it's not like really badly like being done over, right? But if it's close, that's still huge for the price. So have to wait and see. And again, guys, if you like these sort of videos, leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I know this is a bit different to what I normally react to. I usually do like music reaction and stuff. I'm trying to branch out a little bit and do different stuff. If you like hardware or this sort of stuff, then let me know. I can definitely react to more different things like this when that comes out. I just thought I'd try a different sort of video, a different sort of reaction video, see how you guys like it. And guys, we're so close to 2,000 subs, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I'll see all of you beautiful people in the next reaction video. Peace.
Shadows settle on the place that you left. Our minds are troubled by the emptiness.